Bhagavad Gita as it is, 18th chapter, text 30. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha karya karye bhaya bhaye bandham moksham jaya veti buddhisa partha sattviki. O son of Pritha, that understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, is in the mode of goodness. Purport. Performing actions in terms of the directions of the scriptures is called pravritti, or executing actions that deserve to be performed. And actions which are not so directed are not to be performed. One who does not know the scriptural directions becomes entangled in the actions and reactions of work. Understanding which discriminates by intelligence is situated in the mode of goodness. Om Jnanatimidandasya Gyananjanasya Chakshurumitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadāhi Swapadam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatavadamanam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Savadritam Savadhutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Sa He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Maharaj Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha karya karye bhaya bhaye bandham moksham jaya veti buddhisa partha sattviki. In this section of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Shri Krishna describes different workers in the three modes of nature, different kinds of happiness, different kinds of intelligence, many different subjects, determination, in three modes, sattva-gun, rajagun, and tamagun. So here, buddhi, intelligence, is described, starting with intelligence in goodness. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha. Pravritti, what should be done, and nivritti, what should not be done. Elsewhere, pravrittim cha nivrittim cha janana vidarasura. The demonic have no idea of what is to be done and what is not to be done. But those whose intelligence is situated in goodness are supposed to know. They know, especially from Shastra. Shastra pramanam te karya karya vivastito gyatva shastra vidhanokto karma kartum iharasi. To know what to do and what not to do, we should follow the directions of Krishna. And the directions of Krishna are given in Shastra. Dharma ishaksha. Dharma is directly enunciated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So the anyone else? Sabhi mobile band कीजिए. So the Shastras are guide about what we should be doing in our life, what our goal should be, what our program should be, how we make decisions. Everything should be on the basis of Shastra. Otherwise, Shastra vidamutstrija vartate kamakahata nasa siddhim avapnoti nasukham naparamritim. If we set aside Shastra and just go according to what feels right, then nasa siddhim, we would attain perfection. Nasa siddhim avapnoti nasukham, we won't even be happy. And naparamritim, and we'll fail to reach the real destination of human life. So, paritim cha and nivritim cha, we should know what to do and what not to do by the direction of Shastra. Especially the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu gives the direction. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya. Whatever is favorable for the devotional service of Krishna, we should accept. And whatever is unfavorable, we should reject. Again, what is favorable and unfavorable is not what feels right. What feels right is often wrong. What is favorable is what Krishna says is favorable. There's a list of favorable things, starting with to approach a bona fide spiritual master, to associate with the devotees, to worship the Lord, sadhu sangha, Krishna seva, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, chant Hare Krishna, to live in a place like Vrindavan. These are all highly favorable. And intoxication, gambling, eating, illicit sex, unruly cell phones. These are all unfavorable. You have to give it to a kid, anyone under the age of 15. All the experts went. Karya and akarya. Karya means what should be done, what our duty is. Karya. And akarya, what doesn't deserve to be done. If my duty is unpleasant, still it's my duty. It may be unpleasant, it may be unprofitable, it may maybe lead to some loss in some way. It just may be very difficult, but it's my duty, then I have to do it. And if it's not my duty, if it's contrary to my duty, even though it may seem very pleasing or lucrative or whatever, but it's not what I should do. In Bhagavad Gita, it seemed very good to leave the battlefield, but I don't have to fight this ghastly war against Bhishma, Drona, and my relatives. But my duty is that I have to fight. It may not be pleasing, but it's my duty. Or Prabhupada gives the example that the high court judge sometimes has to pass sentence even against a family member. But it's his duty. So these things have to be seen from Shastra. Bandham moksham jayadvaita. What will be binding? What will entangle us more in this material world? And moksham cha. What will liberate us from material entanglement? It's not so difficult. It's not so highly technical. Sometimes there may be some difficult matter to sort our way through. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made it simple. Chant Hare Krishna. Chant Hare Krishna, worship Krishna. Manmana Bhavamad Bhakta Madhyati Mam Maskuru. And Mam Vivaishasi Sajjante Pratijnani Sirosi. That will lead to moksha. This last chapter is called Moksha Yoga. Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Praja Mam Tvam Sarvadharman. Moksha Vishanam. Mantra, don't worry. Simply serve me. And moksha will be included in the package. There's a prayer by Vilamangalatha. I think Vilamangalatha. Since I've been engaged in devotional service, moksha is rolling on my feet. Please take me, please take me, please take me. Because moksha is sort of, there was some discussion that in the house of Raghunath Das Goswami's uncle and father. Yeah, I think so. And the Haridas Thakur was present and many Brahmins were present. And there was some discussion that about the glories of Harinam. And someone said that Harinam is equal to 10,000 Ashwamedha Yagyas. And someone said that by Harinam you get mukti. And then someone else doubted, I don't know if by Harinam you get mukti. So there was some back and forth. And Haridas Thakur, he said that this, to think that Harinam is equal to 10,000 Ashwamedha Yagyas is namaparad. It's an offense to the holy name because these yagyas are simply pious activities, punya karma. And to think that punya karma and Harinam are on the same level is an offense to Harinam. These yagyas may be required at different times, prescribed at different times, but they're more or less ordinary ritualistic activities. And Harinam is the ultimate engagement of the living being. It's association with Krishna himself. So to think that, and what is the result? By 10,000 Ashwamedha Yagyas, maybe one might go to Swarga, which is a temporary material place. You go, you come, Gitagatam, Kama Kama Lokante, going up, coming down, going up, coming down. It's part of this material world. But the result of Harinam is Maneti, one goes back to God. Yadgatva Nani Vartante Sadtam. So there's no comparison between the Ashramedi Yagyas and the holy name of the Lord. And as for moksha, that's just a side benefit of chanting Hare Krishna. The real benefit is love for Krishna, prema pumartha. And along with that, you get mukti. It's probably gave the example that if you have $100 bill, you don't have to separately go looking for a 20 and 50. They're included in the package. So the elsewhere, what is that? Vedeshu yagyeshu tapashu chayava dhaneshu yat punya palam pradishta atyeti tat sarvamidam viditva yogi param sthanam upaiti chaja. Whatever benefits, whatever pious results one might get from Vedic study, from sacrifice, from charity, Adyeti, one surpasses all that. Adyetiya. And Yogi Param Sthanam Upaiti Chaja. One goes back home, back to God. That's our real business. The goal of our Krishna consciousness movement is not to improve our material fortune. Because good fortune and bad fortune are both, they're two different aspects of Maya. Bad Maya and good Maya. Well, bad Maya and good Maya are both Maya. Well, they compare them to dry stool and wet stool. So the dry stool is better. This in the material world, there's whatever we get will be lost. We work so hard to get some whatever it is, and the result is that whatever we get will be finished, but our attachment will not be finished. We'll remain attached to these things, and we'll have to come back in another lifetime to try again or become attached to it. But if we become attached to Krishna, then in this life we'll be happy, and at the end of this life we go to where our attachment lies, back to God, back to Krishna. Well, our objective is very simple. Manmanam, to think of Krishna, Bhagavad to be engaged in devotional service of Krishna, like Yaji, serve Krishna, Mahamaskudu, to offer obeisances to Krishna. This is the business of human life. And one whose intelligence is in the mode of goodness will take direction from Krishna. Everything is here in Bhagavad Gita. You just have to accept it as it is, not as interpreted by some rascal, but as it is. Krishna says, become my devotee, we should become Krishna's devotees. Think of Krishna, we should think of Krishna. How do we think of Krishna? Prabhupada said chanting means thinking. That is, if we chant Hare Krishna, we'll think of Krishna. By silent meditation, we'll become expert at letting our mind wander, which is the opposite of what we want to achieve. But by chanting, the mind becomes fixed. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Naturally, we think of Krishna. So, Bhagavad Bhakta, Vadyaji, to be engaged in the Sankirtan Yagya, to be engaged in Krishna's service. This is our business. Yayadharmam adharmam cha karya meva cha. Ayatava shajanati buddhisa partarajasi. In the mode of passion, O son of Pritha, that understanding which cannot distinguish between religion and irreligion, between action that should be done and action that should not be done, is in the mode of passion. This is the feature of passion, confusion. We don't know. We get bewildered in the mode of passion. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong. Again, because we're being ruled by our desires rather than ruled by Shastra. Adharmam dharmam iti ya manyate tamasa pata sarvartan viparitamscha buddhisa parta tamasi. That understanding which considers irreligion to be religion and religion to be irreligion under the spell of illusion and darkness strives always in the wrong direction, O Partha. That's in the mode of ignorance. Purport. Intelligence in the mode of ignorance is always working the opposite of the way it should. It accepts religions which are not actually religions and rejects actual religion. Men in ignorance understand a great soul to be a common man and accept a common man as a great soul. They think truth to be untruth and accept untruth as truth. In all activities, they simply take the wrong path. Therefore, their intelligence is in the mode of ignorance. So, when we follow the Shastra, then we're guided by transcendental intelligence, by Krishna's intelligence. How good is our intelligence? But when we follow Bhagavad Gita as it is, then we're following Krishna's intelligence. Otherwise, our intelligence will be guided by the modes of nature that we pick up. The way that the air picks up aromas, our intelligence picks up different ideas. The air moves over a garden and picks up the scent of roses. It moves over a garbage pit and picks up the smell of garbage. And our mind goes here and there, and our intelligence goes here and there. And it becomes affected by these material modes. Therefore, the intelligence should be fixed in Krishna consciousness, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, by the direction of Shastra. Then that will be transcendental intelligence, Krishna conscious intelligence. I'll stop here, see what kind of questions you might have. Thank you. Yes.
So Maharaj, thank you. You talked about different types of intelligence, right? In the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. And also in the end, you talked about the transcendental level.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, like when we read Bhagavad Gita, when we try to implement whatever is it, how do I know, like how will we make it? I mean, it looks like we are still following Bhagavad Gita, but are we in the passion?
How do we know that we're following
Ignorance,
Bhagavad
yes.
Gita in practical activities? Therefore, the spiritual master is there. Otherwise, we're just reading Bhagavad Gita, we're trying to figure it out, but we may not get it right.
Okay.
So the spiritual master is there to direct the disciple. Do this, don't do that, do that, don't do this. It's the spiritual master and saintly persons, devotees, especially advanced devotees. By the association of advanced devotees, we get direction. What are you doing? Do it this way. The Shastra, the spiritual master, and the saintly persons. There are guidance for practical activities. Is that okay?
Krishna.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
As you mentioned that mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So, living in this material nature, we are constantly surrounded by these three modes. So, is it possible to, like Krishna says, always mode of goodness is the best. Is it possible that we can constantly be in mode of goodness? Is it possible being in this material world?
Is it possible to be always in the mode of goodness, being in this material world? It will be very difficult. The mode of goodness, first of all, there are different kinds of places to be. The forest is in the mode of goodness. The city is in the mode of passion. And the brothels and liquor houses are in the mode of ignorance. So the modern civilization is generally involved in cultivating the lower two modes, and at best the upper mode, but they're all interested in the three modes of material nature, mostly the lower two. And in this environment, for us to be situated in goodness will be very difficult. Instead of getting up in the morning and collecting flowers for the deities and sitting by the bank of the river and meditating, we get up and gulp down something and rush off to work. And instead of passing by the peacocks and the cows, we pass by the billboards and all the rest of it. So the whole environment is polluted. And in this polluted environment, to be always situated in goodness will be difficult. And therefore our interest is to be transcendentally situated. Transcendentally situated means situated in the service of Krishna. That's easier than being situated in goodness. To be steadily situated in goodness will be more difficult. To be situated in Krishna's service is more practical. Just like our book distributors, they're going out, they're distributing books, they're in a passionate atmosphere. They're passionate also, they want to achieve something. But it's all dedicated to the lotus feet of Krishna. So even that passion is transcendental. For them, on the other hand, simply to be sitting, meditating, in this age it will be very difficult. So, and anyway, we're working, we're engaged in all sorts of duties in the midst of passion. So it's just to be tranquil and good will be hard. It's easier to chant Hare Krishna and be situated in Krishna consciousness. And better. Okay. Now that said, we should try to cultivate tranquility, control of the mind, control of the senses, the qualities of goodness. But the main thing is to be situated in consciousness of Krishna. And what other questions might be bubbling up? Yes.
Just a follow-up question, sir. So we are at least based on previous karma, we are situated in a goodness, fashion, and ignorance, right? Mm-hmm. So the goal is to be on a transcendental platform. Mm-hmm. So does that mean that if I'm in ignorance, I have to come to the platform of goodness to be transcendental? Because Krishna focuses in the Bhagavad Gita a lot of times on the goodness, many times. So is it possible that if someone is a ignorance or a passion, can he go directly to the transcendental?
If someone is in ignorance or passion, can he go directly to the transcendental stage? The usual Shastric direction brings us gradually from ignorance to passion, from passion to goodness, and to transcendence.
Yes.
That will take lifetimes, especially in the present age. It will be a long and laborious process. But Prabhupada said about the chanting of Hare Krishna, the vibration springs at once from the transcendental platform. So people who are in any mode of nature can jump to the spiritual platform by chanting Hare Krishna. Kirata Gunandra Pulinda Pulkasha Apira Shumpa Yivanakashaya Yenye Chapapa Yavapashraya Shriya Shudyanti Tasmai Prabhuvishnavena. This is a list of people who are supposed to be in the mode of ignorance. The Aborigines, the low people who live in the forest, all of those kind of uncivilized people. Chapapa, and all kinds of sinful people. You live in the forest and you kill pigs and you kill this and you kill that. And it's not high class life. Mostly there's so many sinful activities. Or uncivilized people living in places like New York, Chicago, London, killing themselves and killing others. But Yadapashraya, if they take shelter of someone who's taken shelter of Krishna, Shudyanti, they become purified. Aho Bhatta Sopachoto Gradiyam Jiva Greva. Anyone who's chanting the holy name must have bathed in all of the sacred rivers, must have performed all the pious activities, yajnas, everything. Because Harinam is there. So one is promoted. A Jamil, most sinful person, chanted Hare Krishna, chanted Narayana, all the name of the Lord, and was promoted to the Vaikuntha platform. So to gradually uplift ourselves or others through the modes will be a long and tedious process. But chanting Hare Krishna puts us on the transcendental platform. And then a person who becomes Krishna conscious automatically develops the qualities of goodness. What is that? Yeah. Yasyasti Bhaktir Bhagavad Gita 18.30. Anyone who becomes a devotee of Krishna develops all the qualities of the devas. That means all the qualities of goodness. The demigods are in the mood of goodness. So automatically he develops them. Arava Bhaktasya Kutomo. A person who doesn't become a devotee, even if he's supposed to be in the mode of goodness, has no good qualities. So that's our method. Just like there's so many, Prabhupada was hearing today, Prabhupada was talking about vegetarianism. Vegetarianism is, step up in the modes of nature. And I said, but we're not interested in promoting vegetarianism. We promote Krishna consciousness. And if you become Krishna conscious, automatically you become a vegetarian. We're not an anti-alcohol movement, or an anti-smoking movement, or an anti-this movement, anti-that. Just become Krishna conscious. All the good qualities will develop.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Marge, sometimes it can be so difficult to control the mind, even with good association and wonderful instructions from the guru, and so many years of trying to chant, and develop this taste for Krishna consciousness, but it still feels like, we're struggling so much. So how can we try to develop that taste and also get better control over our mind?
Just Rupa Goswami says, Utsaham Nishchayat Dharya, enthusiasm, determination, patience, sadhu sangha, tat karma pravartana. It will take some time. It will take some time. But if we're on the right path, we don't mind that it takes some time. If we're on the right path, we'll get to our destination. We just don't want to be on the wrong path. So, Tasmat Shastra Pramat. And follow Bhagavad Gita as it is, chant Hare Krishna. The result will be sure. Something else? Yes.
Sometimes there's a misunderstanding on how these modes work. Sometimes we think that I'm in the mode of goodness. I'm just going to chill a little bit more relaxed. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually said, I pray for the day when my disciples will rise to the mode of passion, not to the mode of goodness. And so sometimes we so it's like Maharaj said, maybe it's we should wake ourselves up and do something, go out in the street, or do something a little bit more active, and Prabhupada kind of stress on the active part of the yoga. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, that's there. That sometimes we mistake ignorance for goodness, because goodness means tranquility. You're not rushing around. But ignorance is also they don't rush around. So we can confuse the two. Or sometimes we think that these people are practicing yoga, they're in the mode of goodness. And what is it? They're just trying to develop their bodies. What mode is that? Passion and ignorance. So we say that these are people in the mode of goodness. What mode of goodness? So, yes, therefore our goal is not, one time I remember we were sitting with Srila Prabhupada, and he was talking about some group of people, and he said they want peace. And he said it with absolute disdain. But we are not interested in this peace. To be peaceful and tranquil and in Maya will not help us. Peaceful, tranquil, and forgetful of Krishna. That means illusion. So, of course, it's not that we want to cultivate frenzy and madness and so on. But, yes, to be Krishna conscious means, Prabhupada says in one place, daring and active for the service of Krishna. Hanuman wasn't just practicing tranquility. He was busy doing things for the service of Guru Mantra. Prabhupada said there's one purport, it's one of my favorite lines, it's in Nectar of Instruction, that Krishna consciousness is not imaginary ecstasy, nor inactivity. It's practical activity in the service of the Lord. That's devotional service. Prabhupada gave the example, not in so many words, but like you come home at the end of the day and I know, he said it's not sentiment. Just like you come home at the end of the day and you say, prasadam ready? And your wife says, I love you so much. Yeah, okay. Is there prasadam? I'm just always thinking about you. And that doesn't cut it. Practical activity is the real demonstration of love. So we're interested in practical activity, just like we're hearing, who would like to clean the floors? Cleaning the floors is as good as editing the books, or as good as being the temple president, or as good as anything. Because it's Krishna's floor. So to be engaged in elsewhere, Prabhupada said that better than the charlatan meditator?
Street sweeper, honest street sweeper.
An honest street sweeper is better than the charlatan meditator. Sweeping the street for Krishna is transcendental. And sitting and meditating and making a show is just a show. So to be active. How can we spread Krishna consciousness? How can I become Krishna conscious? How can I make others Krishna conscious? There's so many people who've never read Bhagavad Gita as it is, never seen Bhagavad Gita as it is, never chanted Hare Krishna, have no idea what this is. And we're the people who have some touch with it, some knowledge with it, and we want to be tranquil. No, Prabhupada. Where was Prabhupada's, tranquility? He could have sat in Vrindavan and been perfectly peaceful. But instead he went through so much trouble to come to the West for the benefit of others. So, not just our own comfort. Yes. Passion for Krishna. Yes,
But according to the desires, does the mode come in, or how would the mode affect us because of the certain desires?
How do the modes affect us because of certain desires? By association. By association. First thing is I'm associating with this body. That's already a mistake. I'm associating with the mind, I'm associating with the body, I'm imagining that this is what I am. And then I associate with others in the bodily concept of life. And then their consciousness rubs off on me, especially if I associate with materialists, Sri Sangi, Ekashatu, Krishna Bhakta. I associate with them, and Sangat Sanjayate Kama, my desire is developed by association. So therefore, Satsanga Tyag, we should avoid materialistic association. That's one thing. And then the other thing is, the mind also becomes associated with something by thinking. I start thinking of sense gratification, so now my mind is associated with that sense gratification. So according to what it is, it may be sense gratification, goodness, sense gratification, passion, sense gratification. Therefore, positively, if I engage my mind in thinking of Krishna, then it doesn't have time to think of ignorance, passion, material goodness. Savaya Mana Krishna Padava. Maharajan first fixes his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. So that, in that way. I remember at 26 Second Avenue, somebody had embroidered a little sign that if you have no service, then read or chant Hare Krishna. If you're always engaged in Krishna consciousness, you can't be engaged in Maya. Yaha Krishna Tanamaya Naya. Where there's Krishna, there can't be Maya. So rather than just sort of pick our way through this mode, that mode, if we're directly engaged in Krishna's service, and Sadhunan Samadhi Jayadvaita will be on the spiritual platform. I think we should start here.
One last request.
Hmm.
I see it's already Maharaj. Would you be able to recount your first meetings with Prabhupada and what attracted you to him, and what really?
Oh, that's my first meeting with Prabhupada. It's pretty simple. I joined ISKCON. That's how I became associated with Prabhupada. I don't have one of those wonderful stories about how I was walking down the street and suddenly I saw this.
No, but who?
I joined ISKCON. And then
How,
that's I met
Maharaj?
Prabhupada.
How did he join this?
Well, for that you have to read my book. It's called Vanity Karma. It's available from the BBC. I hope that you have some copies here. I do? Okay, so there you go. I told the whole story. Partly for the sake of the book and partly being lazy and not having to tell Thank you.